Today we're going to be adding and subtracting complex numbers. Alright, so first we have to know what is a complex number. So we know that a real number, well, we know real numbers, right, which are 2, 7, pi, I don't know, square root of 2 over 7, you know, real numbers are numbers that we know already, right? And then imaginary numbers, we got introduced in the last video to the imaginary number, right? So we said that the imaginary number was I, which is the square root of -1, right? And then imaginary numbers are basically I and its multiples, right? It could be, you know, 3i, it could be a square root of 7i, I divided by pi, you know, I divided by 72, you know, 3i divided by 2, you know, any multiple of I. Those are the imaginary numbers, right? So now a complex number is right? So when we try to add a real number and an imaginary number, we end up with a complex number. All right, so if we try to add 2 plus I, we cannot add these two numbers, right? So it's gonna stay like that, right? This is called a complex number. All right, so yeah, when we add when we add real numbers with imaginary numbers, we end up with complex number, right? So it could be the square root of 7 plus 3i, no, pi plus I over 2. Those are complex numbers, all right? Okay, so now that we know what is a complex number, we can start with the exercises. All right, so we have 5 plus 5i plus 7 plus 2i, right? So if we want to add two complex numbers, basically all we have to do is something similar to when we do, you know, when we add equations, right? It is like if we had an x. So we have to add, you know, first we have 5 plus 5i plus 7 plus 2i. This is just like if it was an equation, right? So you add the, you know, the real numbers with the real numbers, which are 5 and 7, and you end up with 12. And then you add the imaginary numbers with the imaginary numbers, which are 5 and 2, 5i and 2i. So you end up with 12 plus 7i, right? And that's all. And again, for 2, the same thing, right? It's used as if it was an equation. So you have 11 minus I plus 2 minus 3i, right? And yeah, you have 11 minus I plus 2 minus 3i. So again, you have to add the real numbers with the real numbers. So you have 13 minus 4i, right? And now if we want to subtract real numbers, if we want to subtract complex numbers, again, the same thing. It's used as if it was an equation, right? So you have 3 minus 5i minus I. So you see, in this case, we have I only, right? We only have the imaginary part. We don't have a real part. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It's again, it's used as if it was an equation, right? So we have 3 minus 5i, right? And then minus I, right? So we end up with 3 minus 6i, right? And that's the solution for 3. Now 4, same thing. We have 6i plus 2 minus 17 plus 4i. And again, we have 6i plus 2 minus 17 minus 4i, right? So we add the real numbers with real numbers. 2 minus 17, that's negative 15. And then 6i minus 4i, that's positive 2i, right? And that's the solution. And finally, number 5, we have minus 2i plus 2 minus 5. In this case, we have the real part, but we don't have the imaginary part, right? So again, we have minus 2i plus 2 minus 5. We add the real part with the real numbers with the real number, and we end up with negative 3. And finally, we have the imaginary part, which is minus 2i, right? And that's all for today. Thank you for watching.